When life hits hard, most people panic, cry, or lose control. But some people stay calm like nothing can break them. Their secret? They train their mind to control emotions before emotions controlled them. In the middle of a loud and stressful city, there lived a young man named Ethan who was known for being extremely emotional. Every difficult situation affected him deeply. If someone criticized him, he overthought it for days. If life became stressful, panic immediately took over his mind. During arguments, he lost control of his emotions and later regretted his words. Even small problems felt enormous inside his head because his emotions controlled his thinking completely. Ethan believed emotional reactions were natural and unavoidable, but deep inside, he secretly admired people who stayed calm under pressure. He wondered how some individuals could face pain, rejection, failure, and disrespect without collapsing emotionally. One rainy evening, after losing an important job opportunity, Ethan sat alone at a train station feeling completely broken mentally. His chest felt heavy with disappointment and anger. Nearby sat an older man calmly reading a book while heavy rain and loud chaos surrounded the station. The strange thing was that nothing seemed capable of disturbing the old man's peace. After noticing Ethan's frustration, the man closed his book slowly and asked, "Why are you suffering twice?" Ethan looked confused. "What do you mean?" The man replied calmly, "Life already created pain for you, but now your uncontrolled emotions are creating additional suffering." Those words struck Ethan deeply. The old man introduced himself as Victor and explained that most people are not destroyed by difficult situations themselves. They are destroyed by emotional reactions toward those situations. "A weak mind reacts immediately," Victor said softly. "A trained mind observes first." That single conversation became the beginning of Ethan's transformation. Over the following weeks, Ethan started visiting Victor regularly after work. During one conversation, Ethan admitted honestly, "I want to become emotionless so nothing can hurt me anymore." Victor smiled faintly before shaking his head. "That is the wrong goal," he replied calmly. "Emotionless people are not strong. Disciplined people are." Ethan stayed silent while Victor continued. "You are not supposed to destroy emotions. You are supposed to control them." Those words changed Ethan's understanding completely. Victor explained that emotions themselves are natural. Fear warns you about danger. Sadness reflects loss. Anger signals boundaries. But problems begin when emotions take control of decisions, actions, and behavior. Most people become servants of temporary feelings, Victor explained. Strong people learn how to feel emotions without obeying them blindly. To begin training Ethan's mind, Victor gave him a strange exercise. Every day for 30 minutes, Ethan had to sit completely alone in silence without distractions. No phone, no music, no entertainment, just silence and thoughts. At first, Ethan hated it. His mind felt chaotic. Anxiety, regret, anger, insecurity, and fear rushed through his thoughts endlessly. But Victor explained something important. You cannot control a mind you refuse to observe. Slowly, Ethan began understanding how emotionally reactive he truly was. He realized most of his suffering came not from situations themselves, but from the stories his mind created afterward. And for the first time in his life, he started learning the difference between feeling emotions and becoming controlled by them. One afternoon, Victor took Ethan to a crowded marketplace filled with noise, impatient people, and constant stress. As they walked through the chaos, Victor suddenly asked, "What do you notice?" Ethan immediately complained about rude people, loud arguments, and irritating behavior everywhere. Victor nodded calmly. Exactly. Most people absorb the emotions around them without realizing it. Ethan looked confused, so Victor explained further. If everyone around you becomes angry, anxious, or emotional, and you immediately react the same way, your mind does not belong to you. Those words stayed in Ethan's head. Moments later, a man accidentally slammed into Ethan's shoulder aggressively without apologizing. Instantly, anger rose inside him. His heart started beating faster. He wanted to react immediately, but before he could speak, Victor calmly said, "Observe the emotion. Do not become the emotion." Ethan paused silently. For the first time, instead of instantly obeying anger, he simply noticed it inside himself. The anger slowly lost power after several seconds. The rude stranger continued walking away, while Ethan remained standing peacefully. Victor smiled slightly. "That," he said quietly, "is emotional control." Ethan suddenly realized something shocking. Emotions feel permanent when you react immediately, but when you observe them calmly without feeding them, many emotions disappear naturally. That moment changed him deeply, because he finally understood strong people are not free from emotions. They simply refuse to become controlled by every emotional impulse. One winter evening, while snow covered the city streets in silence, Ethan confessed one of his deepest fears to Victor. "What if staying calm makes me cold or weak emotionally?" Victor looked thoughtfully out the window before replying softly, "Calmness is not weakness. Uncontrolled emotions are weakness." Ethan listened carefully while Victor continued. "The strongest people often feel emotions deeply. They simply do not allow emotions to destroy their judgment." Victor explained that becoming truly disciplined means learning when emotions are useful and when they become dangerous. Fear can encourage preparation. Sadness can create wisdom. Anger can reveal injustice. But when emotions become excessive, they blind logic completely. "Emotions should inform your decisions," Victor said calmly, "not control them." Those words stayed inside Ethan's mind permanently. Later that night, while walking home through freezing wind, Ethan reflected deeply on his past. So many painful moments in his life became worse because he reacted emotionally without thinking clearly first. Arguments, lost friendships, stress, regret. Most damage came from emotional impulsiveness rather than the original problem itself. For the first time, Ethan understood why emotionally disciplined people appear almost untouchable during hard situations. It is not because they feel nothing. It is because they learn how to remain mentally stable while emotions pass through them. Weeks later, Ethan faced one of the hardest moments of his life when his father suddenly became seriously ill. Hospitals, uncertainty, fear, and exhaustion surrounded his family for months. Watching his mother cry late at night filled Ethan with pain he had never experienced before. Old habits tried returning immediately. Panic whispered inside his mind constantly. Fear imagined the worst possible outcomes every single day. But this time, Ethan did something different. Instead of allowing emotions to completely control his behavior, he focused on remaining calm enough to support his family. Every morning before entering the hospital, he sat quietly for 10 minutes practicing slow breathing and mental stillness. He reminded himself of Victor's words, "Strong minds focus on what they can control." Ethan could not fully control illness, uncertainty, or life itself, but he could control how he responded emotionally. Nurses eventually noticed how calm and steady he remained even during stressful situations. One finally asked softly, "How are you staying this composed?" Ethan looked tired but peaceful as he replied, "Panic will not heal anyone." That sentence revealed how much he had transformed internally. The pain was still real. Fear still existed. But now emotions no longer completely controlled his actions. And through that difficult period, Ethan learned an important truth. Emotional discipline matters most during moments when life becomes painful. One afternoon after leaving the hospital, Ethan met Victor inside a quiet cafe and admitted something honestly. "I still feel emotions strongly," he said. Sometimes I still feel fear, sadness, and anger deeply. Victor smiled faintly before replying. Good. That means you are human. Ethan looked confused, so Victor continued. The goal was never become a robot. The goal is to become mentally strong enough that emotions no longer destroy your clarity. Those words finally completed Ethan's understanding. Many people misunderstand Stoic discipline. They believe emotionally strong individuals feel nothing at all. But Victor explained that true emotional mastery means feeling emotions without drowning inside them. Think of emotions like storms, Victor said calmly. Weak people get carried away by them. Strong people remain standing until the storm passes. Ethan reflected deeply on that idea afterward. Throughout life, difficult situations will continue appearing forever. Loss, rejection, failure, betrayal, fear. Emotional pain itself was unavoidable, but emotional chaos was not. The mind could be trained. That realization gave Ethan enormous peace because he stopped fighting emotions completely and instead focused on managing them wisely. As Ethan's discipline improved, people around him slowly began noticing the difference. He no longer reacted emotionally to criticism instantly. Stressful situations no longer destroyed his focus completely. During arguments, he paused before speaking instead of impulsively exploding with anger. One evening during dinner, a friend asked him, "Why do you seem so calm lately no matter what happens?" Ethan thought carefully before answering softly, "I stopped expecting life to always feel comfortable." His friend looked confused, so Ethan explained further. Most emotional suffering comes from resistance. People believe life should always go according to their plans. So when problems appear, emotions immediately become overwhelming because reality conflicts with expectations. But emotionally disciplined people accept something different. Hardship is part of life itself. Once Ethan accepted this deeply, difficult situations stopped shocking him emotionally the same way. Delays, failure, criticism, stress, disappointment all became temporary experiences instead of emotional disasters. One night, while walking home alone beneath heavy rain, Ethan realized something powerful. Emotional strength is not built by avoiding difficult situations. It is built by facing them repeatedly without surrendering control of the mind. Months later, Ethan experienced another painful challenge when someone he trusted betrayed him financially. The betrayal cost him nearly all his savings and left him emotionally devastated. For several hours after discovering the truth, rage completely filled his mind. He imagined revenge, confrontation, and endless arguments. But before reacting impulsively, Ethan remembered one of Victor's most important lessons. Never make permanent decisions during temporary emotions. Instead of immediately reacting, Ethan spent the night alone, calming his mind first. He exercised, reflected quietly, and forced himself to wait until emotional intensity faded slightly. The next morning, although pain still remained, his thinking became clearer and more rational. He handled the situation legally and calmly, instead of emotionally destroying himself further. Later, a friend asked him in disbelief, "How did you not completely lose control after that?" Ethan answered honestly, "I wanted to, but I realized emotional reactions would only create more suffering." That experience taught him something deeply important. Emotionally disciplined people are not immune to pain. They simply refuse to let pain transform them into destructive versions of themselves. One winter evening, while sitting beside a fire inside Victor's apartment, Ethan finally asked a question he'd been thinking about for months. What is the biggest difference between emotionally weak people and emotionally strong people? Victor remained silent thoughtfully for several moments before answering softly. Emotionally weak people believe every feeling must be obeyed immediately. Ethan listened carefully while Victor continued. Emotionally strong people understand feelings are temporary visitors, not permanent rulers. Those words changed everything for Ethan. He realized emotions only become dangerous when people blindly identify with them completely. Anger says attack. Fear says run. Sadness says give up. But disciplined minds pause before obeying those emotional commands automatically. Victor then added one final truth. You become powerful the moment you realize you do not have to react to every emotion you feel. Ethan stared quietly into the fire while absorbing those words deeply. For the first time in his life, he truly understood what emotional mastery meant. Not emotional numbness, not suppression, but calm awareness powerful enough to remain stable even when emotions rise strongly inside. As years passed, Ethan slowly became the kind of man others turned to during difficult moments. Friends called him during crises because he stayed calm under pressure. Co-workers trusted him during stressful projects because he rarely panicked emotionally. Younger people often asked him for advice about heartbreak, anxiety, anger, and emotional pain. One evening, a frustrated young man asked Ethan desperately, "How do I stop emotions from ruining my life?" Ethan looked thoughtfully toward the city lights before answering calmly, "Stop feeding every emotion with attention." The young man looked confused, so Ethan explained further. Most people strengthen emotions by replaying painful thoughts repeatedly inside their minds. Anger becomes obsession. Fear becomes panic. Sadness becomes hopelessness. But emotions lose power when people observe them calmly, without constantly feeding them mentally. Your mind follows whatever you focus on repeatedly, Ethan explained. That is why emotional discipline requires awareness. Those words deeply affected the young man, because he realized much of his suffering came from mentally repeating painful emotions endlessly instead of letting them pass naturally. One spring afternoon, Victor became seriously ill and eventually admitted to Ethan that he did not have much time left to live. Hearing this news shook Ethan deeply despite all his training. The thought of losing the man who transformed his life filled him with sadness. During one hospital visit, Ethan quietly admitted, "I don't know how to handle losing you." Victor smiled gently despite his weakness. "You handle it the same way you handle all pain," he replied softly. "Feel it honestly, but do not let it destroy your spirit." Ethan sat silently beside him while Victor continued. Life was never meant to be controlled completely. Only the mind can be trained. Those words became one of the most important lessons Ethan ever received. A few weeks later, Victor passed away peacefully during the night. Ethan cried deeply after the funeral, but this time sadness no longer felt like weakness to him. It felt human, and because of Victor's teachings, he understood something clearly now. Emotional discipline does not remove pain from life. It simply prevents pain from controlling your identity permanently. Years later, Ethan often reflected on the lessons Victor taught him while watching the world around him become increasingly emotionally reactive. Social media outrage, endless arguments, emotional impulsiveness, and constant stress surrounded modern life everywhere. Most people reacted instantly to every opinion, every criticism, every inconvenience. Watching this made Ethan realize how rare emotional control truly was. One evening during a public discussion, someone asked him, "What is the biggest advantage of becoming emotionally disciplined?" Ethan smiled faintly before answering, "Peace." The room became silent immediately. Ethan explained that emotionally reactive people live like prisoners of circumstances. Their mood changes constantly depending on external situations and other people's behavior. But disciplined individuals carry stability inside themselves regardless of chaos around them. When emotions stop controlling you, Ethan said calmly, life becomes much lighter. Those words perfectly summarized everything Victor had taught him throughout the years. Paragraph 14. As Ethan entered old age, he spent more time alone reflecting quietly on life. Looking back, he realized emotional discipline had changed every part of his existence. It improved relationships, decisions, confidence, health, and inner peace. But most importantly, it gave him freedom from emotional slavery. One evening, while sitting beneath the sunset overlooking the city, a young stranger approached him nervously and asked, "Sir, how do I become emotionless during difficult situations?" Ethan smiled gently because he recognized the misunderstanding immediately. After several moments of silence, he answered softly, "Do not become emotionless. Become stronger than your emotions." The young man stayed quiet while Ethan continued, "Feel everything, but never allow temporary emotions to control permanent decisions." The wind moved softly across the hill as darkness slowly covered the city below. Ethan then added one final truth. The strongest people are not those who feel nothing, but those who remain calm even while feeling everything. The young man sat silently beside Ethan, thinking deeply about those words while the cold evening wind moved through the trees around them. After several minutes, he finally asked quietly, "But how do I stay calm when life becomes unbearable?" Ethan looked toward the dark city below before answering softly, "You stop asking life to be easy." The young man looked confused, so Ethan continued, "Most suffering grows because people expect life to always go according to their plans. When reality changes suddenly, their emotions collapse." Ethan explained that emotionally strong people train themselves to accept uncertainty before difficult situations arrive. They understand loss, pain, rejection, betrayal, and hardship are all part of being human. Because of this mindset, they are shocked less by suffering when it appears. "Acceptance creates calmness," Ethan said quietly. "Resistance creates emotional chaos." The young man admitted he spent years fighting reality emotionally whenever things went wrong. Ethan nodded because he once lived exactly the same way. "The mind becomes peaceful," he explained, "when you stop arguing with things you cannot control." Those words deeply affected the young man because for the first time, he realized emotional discipline begins with acceptance, not suppression. Before leaving that night, the young man asked Ethan one final question. "What daily habit made the biggest difference in your emotional control?" Ethan smiled faintly before replying, "Silence." The young man looked surprised, so Ethan explained further. "Every day I spent time alone, observing my thoughts without distraction. That habit taught me how my emotions actually work." He explained that most people never truly understand their own mind because they constantly escape into noise, entertainment, and distractions whenever emotions become uncomfortable. But strong people do the opposite. They sit with discomfort until understanding replaces fear. "Silence reveals emotional weakness," Ethan said calmly. "And once you can see weakness clearly, you can train it." The young man listened carefully while darkness fully covered the sky above them. Ethan then stood slowly before saying one final sentence that stayed in the young man's mind forever. "Difficult situations do not destroy people automatically. Uncontrolled emotions do." As Ethan walked peacefully down the hill beneath the quiet night sky, the young man finally understood what true strength really looked like. Months after meeting Ethan, the young man began practicing emotional discipline seriously for the first time in his life. At first, progress felt painfully slow. Some days he still lost control during arguments. Some nights anxiety still kept him awake for hours. But instead of hating himself for emotional struggles, he started observing them calmly. Whenever anger appeared, he paused before reacting. Whenever fear overwhelmed him, he reminded himself that emotions are temporary. Slowly, his mind became less chaotic. One afternoon during work, a customer insulted him harshly in front of everyone. Normally, embarrassment and anger would have ruined his entire day. But this time, he stayed silent for several seconds and remembered Ethan's words. You do not have to react to every emotion. The anger still existed inside him, but he no longer obeyed it automatically. After the customer left, his co-worker stared at him in surprise. How did you stay so calm? He asked. The young man smiled faintly before replying. I realized protecting my peace is more important than protecting my ego. Walking home later that evening, he felt something new inside himself, not emotional numbness, but emotional stability. And for the first time, difficult situations no longer felt powerful enough to completely control his mind. Years later, the young man himself became someone others admired during difficult moments. Friends often came to him during emotional crises because he carried calmness into stressful situations naturally now. One rainy evening, while sitting inside a quiet cafe, a teenager asked him nervously, how do people become mentally unbreakable? The young man looked thoughtfully out the window before answering softly, by surviving difficult moments without allowing emotions to control their decisions. He explained that emotional mastery is not built in comfort. It is built during painful situations where the mind wants to panic, quit, or lose control. Every hard moment becomes training. Every emotional storm becomes another opportunity to practice discipline. Strong people are not born calm, he continued. They become calm by repeatedly facing chaos without surrendering to it. The teenager listened silently while rain moved softly against the glass windows nearby. Then the young man smiled faintly and added one final truth. The moment you realize emotions are temporary, you stop allowing temporary feelings to ruin permanent parts of your life. One winter night, after finishing work late, the young man walked alone through empty streets covered in cold fog. The city around him felt quiet, almost frozen in silence. As he passed a small bridge, he suddenly remembered the person he used to be years earlier, angry, anxious, emotionally unstable, constantly controlled by fear and overthinking. Back then, every difficult situation felt like the end of the world. One insult could ruin his confidence. One failure could destroy his motivation completely. But now, after years of mental discipline, something inside him had changed permanently. Problems still appeared in life, but they no longer owned his mind. He stopped at the center of the bridge and looked down at the dark water moving calmly beneath him. Suddenly, he realized the strongest people are not those who avoid emotional pain. They are the ones who learn how to carry pain without becoming consumed by it. That understanding brought him enormous peace. He no longer feared difficult situations the same way because he trusted his ability to remain calm inside them, and that trust became stronger than fear itself. As the years continued passing, people often described the young man as emotionless because of how calm he remained during stressful situations. But deep inside, he knew the truth. He was not emotionless at all. He still felt sadness when people left. He still felt fear during uncertainty. He still felt anger during injustice. The difference was that emotions no longer controlled his behavior automatically. He had trained himself to pause, observe, and choose responses wisely instead of reacting impulsively. One evening, while watching the sunset from a quiet hill outside the city, a child sitting nearby asked him innocently, "Why do you always seem so peaceful?" The man smiled softly before answering, "Because I learned that emotions are like weather. Some storms are strong, but none last forever. The child listened carefully while warm sunlight slowly disappeared behind the mountains. Then the man added one final lesson. If you stay calm during emotional storms, eventually the sky inside your mind becomes clear again. And sitting there peacefully beneath the fading evening light, he understood something beautiful at last. True strength was never about becoming emotionless. True strength was learning how to remain calm while feeling everything. In the final stage of his life, the man often sat alone beneath the same old tree outside the city, where he once struggled with fear, anger, and emotional chaos years earlier. The world around him still remained loud, stressful, and unpredictable. People still argued, panicked, overreacted, and allowed emotions to control their lives every day. But inside himself, he finally felt something he had searched for his entire life: peace. Not because life became perfect, but because his mind became stronger than life's storms. Looking back, he realized the greatest lesson he ever learned was simple. Difficult situations do not decide who you become, your response does. Pain is unavoidable. Fear is natural. Sadness is human. But losing control of your mind is a choice repeated daily. The strongest people are not those who never cry, never fail, or never suffer. The strongest people are those who continue walking calmly through chaos without allowing darkness to take over their spirit. As the evening sun slowly disappeared behind the mountains, the man closed his eyes peacefully and smiled faintly to himself. Because after years of struggle, he finally understood the truth most people spend their whole lives searching for. Mastering the world is impossible, but mastering your own mind changes everything.